You know, for any musician, it's the ultimate dream, right? That amazing moment. You hear your own song come on the radio for the very first time, just blasting out to thousands, maybe even millions of people. For decades, that was it. That was the absolute peak.
But here we are. We're living in a world of streaming, algorithms, and viral TikToks. So you have to ask the question, is getting on the radio still the massive game changer it used to be? All right, let's get into it and unpack the real truth about radio promotion today.
You see, the gap between the dream of radio and the reality has never, ever been wider. On one hand, you've got this beautiful, romantic idea of national airplay and instant stardom, but the reality, well, it's confusing, it's incredibly expensive, and honestly, there are just no guarantees. So first up, let's take a closer look at this dream. Is it just a fading signal from a time gone by, or is it still a clear channel to making it big? I mean, you can't deny its history. Radio was the undisputed kingmaker. It could literally take an unknown artist and turn them into a household name seemingly overnight. But today, its whole role has shifted. It's just not the main place people go to discover new music anymore. That's what your Spotify Discover Weekly playlist and social media are for.
Okay, now we're going to get into the most eye-opening part of this whole conversation. What it actually costs to get your music on the air. And, you might want to brace yourselves for this one. So at the very entry level, you've got college radio. A campaign that targets these non-commercial stations, it's going to run you somewhere between $1,000 and $3,000. It's a fantastic way to get your foot in the door, for sure. But that's still a pretty big chunk of change.
But what if you want to level up? You know, aim for regional commercial radio, targeting stations in a specific city or a state? Well, the price tag here takes a massive leap. Now you're looking at $5,000 to $15,000, and honestly, a lot of times even more than that.
And for the big one, the main dream, a national campaign hitting major stations all across the country. We're talking six figures, $100,000, and that's often just the starting point. Yeah, that's a major label kind of budget.
So this is probably the most crucial thing to understand. What are you actually buying with all that money? Because here's the biggest misconception of all. You are not paying for airplay. Let me say that again. You are not buying spins. You are paying for a radio promoter's hard work, their experience, and most importantly, the relationships they've spent years building with music directors. They're going to fight for your song, but there is absolutely no guarantee it'll get played.
And this brings us right to the heart of the problem for artists today. This huge disconnect between getting radio play and actually seeing any growth on places like Spotify. Think about it. You could get hundreds of spins on a local station, which sounds amazing, right? But then you look at your Spotify numbers, your Apple Music numbers, and nothing. Crickets. The two worlds are just surprisingly separate. A lot of radio listeners are, just passive. They're driving, they're working, they don't whip out their phone to Shazam and save every single song. And that means those spins often do nothing to trigger the algorithms that actually drive digital discovery.
Okay, now take a look at this, because this visual really lays out the choice an artist has to make. Let's say you've got $10,000 for marketing. You could sink that into a regional radio campaign, and yeah, maybe you'll get some local buzz. But if you put that same 10 grand into a smart digital marketing campaign, we're talking targeted social media ads, getting your song to the right influencers, you will almost always see a much higher return on your investment where it counts today: streams, followers, and making those algorithms happy.
So let's break it down really quick. Radio does still have some strengths, for sure. It gives you a certain kind of credibility, it's awesome for building awareness in a specific local market, and it can really help you sell tickets if you're touring through that town. But the weaknesses are pretty major. It's terrible at converting listeners to streamers, it doesn't really trigger the algorithms, and it has a really tough time reaching younger audiences. So, after hearing all that, you're probably thinking, okay, so radio is a total waste of money. But hold on, it's not quite that simple. It can still be a really powerful tool if, and this is a big if, you use it strategically.
So you got to ask yourself a few questions. First, is your music even a good fit for radio-friendly genres like country or adult contemporary? Second, and this is a big one, do you already have some heat, some real momentum on streaming platforms? Are you maybe trying to sell tickets for a tour in specific cities? And finally, and most critically, do you have a big enough budget where this isn't your only shot? If you can say yes to these, then yeah, radio might actually be a pretty smart move. And this right here, this is the key. This is the whole thing in a nutshell. Today, radio's job is not to help people discover you. Its job is to reinforce the success you already have. It's an amplifier, not the ignition switch. It tells people who might have already heard your name online that you're the real deal. So all of this leads to a pretty fundamental shift in how you need to think. We have to stop looking at radio as the ultimate target, the end goal, and start seeing it for what it is now, just one possible tool in a much, much bigger marketing toolbox.
I absolutely love this quote because it just says it all so perfectly. Your digital strategy, your content, your live show, that is your foundation. That's the strong base you build everything on. Radio, if and when you decide to use it, is just one of the walls you build on top of that.
So, to wrap it all up, the big takeaway is this. Radio promotion isn't dead. Not at all. For the right artist at the right time with the right budget, it can still work wonders, but it is absolutely 100% no longer essential for building a successful career in music.
And that leaves us with the final question, the one that every single artist out there has to answer for themselves. Now that you know the real cost, the real return on investment, and the real role of radio in today's world, where is your next marketing dollar going to make the biggest impact? That right there is the real $1 million or, maybe $10,000 question.